Where we were last time is I jumped ahead of my notes because I wanted to make clear the sort of dramatic thing that happens at the top of the purgatory, namely that this chariot-like thing comes along and there's somebody in it and they're covered with a veil and the angels are flying overhead and it's being escorted by symbolic figures of all the books of the Bible, Old and New Testament, and it stops right in front of Dante. And what happens? Well, the person, it turns out there's a person in the chariot, and it turns out it's a woman. Well, you just have to say, and what would you expect? I mean, until you get very clear about what you would expect, having all that procession and angels and everything leading up, that was it. Thanks. Okay, good. Yeah, okay, that's great. Thanks. So what would it's obvious that what you would expect would be that it would be the God-man, Jesus, the Savior, in the chariot, pulled by the griffin. Oh yeah, I remember now. I better write this down. I remembered one thing which reminded me something I haven't remembered. Would somebody write down that I need to tell the people that we're out of batteries, and also tell you and the people who give us the batteries that there won't be a lecture by me or anybody on a certain day, which I have here, and that is on the 4th. So it's going to be business as usual next Tuesday. It may be half Dante and half, who knows, I mean, how much, but it's going to be transition day is Tuesday. Then I'm leaving town. There won't be any lecture. There won't be any office hours after Monday. But I better write that up there, that the next office hours are today, Friday, not 3 to 5, which turns out to be too late for some people. So to make, what? Tomorrow, yeah, tomorrow is Friday. Good idea. Tomorrow, office hours from 2 to 4 instead of 3 to 5. And then because I'm going to be out of town next week, for part of the week, for Monday, for instance, I move the office hour next week from from Wednesday to Monday. So the next office hours are from 2 to 4, I think. I want to make sure I got this right. Well, I haven't written it here, but I'm sure that's what I mean. Just a second, though. Let's not panic. Monday 2 to 4. And did somebody write down two things that I have to tell the podcast person, and I have to, we have to get batteries. Okay, now, back to where we were. And so one of the things I made a note I wanted to start with, because it's such an outrageous claim that I feel I have to keep repeating it, is that Ciardi doesn't understand, that Virgil doesn't understand what's going on. I mean, you should get used to this. That the Christian creator God made the whole of the universe, including the Inferno and the Purgatory, and it's got its own order and lawfulness, and that Virgil doesn't understand any of that, and Ciardi, like everybody as far as I know, believes Virgil. And now I want to add a complication, which some of you already mentioned after class. But how could we not believe Virgil? Dante keeps saying, you're the brightest, you're the light of my life, you're so clear, you make me understand everything. He says it as he's drifting off to sleep, which is a little weird, but he certainly does seem to like Virgil a lot. And so then here I am going on saying all the time, but Virgil is all wrong, and Ciardi is just following everybody who falls for this. And now that I'm adding, but no wonder everybody falls for it. That can't be right. I mean, Dante makes it perfectly clear that he just loves Virgil, and Virgil is his hero, his guru, and everything rolled into his father too, who carries him around when they have to go through difficult times. And so what's going on there? Well, I don't know what's going on there. And I told one student if he or she, I think it was he, can write a paper trying to sort this out and settle it. I mean, the question is clear enough. The question is, are we supposed to believe Virgil or not? And then, and how do you reconcile Dante saying all these flattering things about Virgil and then writing this book showing, it looks like, that Virgil gets it wrong at every crucial point? And the most crucial point is, of course, the wall. I mean, there may be some disagreement about some things, but we know that the wall is the wall of a fortress, not a prison. And Virgil thinks they're imprisoned there. Now, it's all up to Dante. At least somebody ought to get clear that what Virgil is saying about the wall is wrong. But you on page 36 of your Purgatory book, that is Canto, the end of Canto 1 in the notes. It may be, remember, you have different page numbers. But go to the end of Canto 1, you find the notes, and then I was stunned to see it again in the first paragraph of the notes on 36. Ciardi says, demons guard the damned to inflict punishment and to prevent escape. Well, that's not a matter of an opinion that that's wrong. It's clear that they're not trying to escape. They're trying to keep everybody else out and have their own autonomy inside instead of just conforming to God's plan. And they don't, I mean, I keep repeating this, but it's so important that I repeat it on purpose. Why would anybody want to keep God out? God is so powerful. God is so fulfilling. God is so good, Well, if you don't want to be a kind of homing missile, pre-programmed to have a need, and a need that only God can fill, that God has created you like one of his toys. And if you don't like that, if you don't like that, then you're going to want to set up a counter kingdom, namely Dis, where people can choose their own way of life and try to choose what is fulfilling according to their desires. I went back and checked, and it's certainly clear, and I added it to the cantos to read. I'd already mentioned them. The cantos about the homosexuals and the cantos about the suicides make it clear that these people are setting up their own world and rejecting God's plan for them. And now, I saw a hand up. Yeah, go ahead. You're trying hard to get me to hear you, but you didn't succeed. Did you hear?
They really succeed in making their own autonomy if it's true that they're being punished.
Yes, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good question. That's the answer, I think. I mean, it's funny, as I was talking, this was on my mind. I was having your worry. Then I thought maybe the answer is that, like all the other people who are in hell, the ones outside the wall, for instance, they see the dark side of something, which, when they were alive, they didn't see as having that dark side. So you see the dark side of passions which batter you and whirl you around with Paolo and Francesca, and you feel what it's like to be a glutton when you're sort of in the slop, in the mud, and so forth. Well, suppose you try it for the people inside the wall. Well, the people inside the wall, until Dante comes along and tells them about what he saw in hell, and they may not even believe him. Anyway, there's no reason that they have to think that these bad things are happening to the people in the inferno. If the punishments are the right kind of punishments, Remember, there are two kinds. You did something to somebody and now we're going to do something in reverse to you. That's uninteresting. But if the punishments are like the homosexual punishments, which are that everything is sterile and they're running around on burning sand and there's nothing growing, it's sort of the dark side of being a homosexual who doesn't even have love in his life because they're running around in these pacts. But that looked good to them while they were out there cruising around. But it doesn't look good to them when it's under the fiery flakes and what they are, I don't know. But on the sterile burning sand. So what am I saying? I'm saying the point is the people inside the wall are people now still rebelling. That's further complication. I have to think about that now. Let's go the easy way. First, I was thinking, well, there are people who rebelled, not realizing the really painful, eternal, awful consequences of rebelling. And now I have to fix it because they're seeing these consequences. But it's too late. By the time they're seeing the consequences in hell, their whole lives have been frozen. Well, frozen has got its own meaning, so let me not put it that way. How do I find a word for it? They are stuck in the life they had. They can't go on now changing their lives and repenting. That's against the rules. They were warned. The church told them, that suicide is a very bad thing and you shouldn't do it, and homosexuality is a very bad thing and you shouldn't do it. And they went ahead and did it. Now it's too late. Now they see why it's a bad thing, because the punishment sort of dramatizes the painfulness of it, and they can't change. And they can't change their rebellious attitude because they're in a different sort of temporal dimension. They're in eternity now. Their character and their lives are settled in this life, and they're settled in this life in such a way that they're stuck with them forever. I think that sounds to me all that very sensible, but I see a hand. Maybe it won't be. Tell me what.
Because they're stuck in that one particular in that life.
No, it's not a prison because I'm quite clear to myself that it's not a prison, but I need to make it clear to you guys. So let me think. I'm trying to say that they aren't trying to run away from it. It isn't something where they are, as Virgil claims, imprisoned. It's too late for them to run away from it. It's their life, and their life was. I'm going to see if I can repeat it in a way that their life was rebellion, and they're still rebelling, as we saw when they ran in and slammed the gate when Virgil said we're on a divine mission. They're still rebelling, and they will eternally rebel, because once you've had your life, you don't get a second chance to say, I shouldn't have done that. If only I'd known. It's the job of the church and the state in Dante. I haven't talked about that, but it's in the reading now. I put it in. It's the job of the church and the state to warn people about bad lives. The church is supposed. Well, let's start with the state. The state is supposed to outlaw bad things, like, let's say, drugs, if there would be a Dante-like example. And if you obey the church, you won't become some kind of drug addict. But if you are, it's not the fault of God or the church. You have freely chosen to do what you should know better. And the state tells you what not to do, and the church tells you what. It's like the carrot and the stick. I mean, the law is the stick. It'll hit you and punish you and beat you if you break it. And the church's job is to show you the wonders and beauties of doing it if you live in conformity with God's plan, and direct your desires toward what God makes you desire and what God has designed to satisfy your desires. Then but the trouble is, now I'm going to go out in a funny limb again. Dante thinks that the church and the state are not doing a good job. Now, you might get a fancy lawyer in there and say, well, then it isn't fair to punish these people because the church and the state should do a better job of warning people and making laws that prevent it. I don't know what the answer to that is. Probably the answer to that is that the church and the state may be doing a bad job, but there's enough information around that you shouldn't be rebelling against God and that you shouldn't be committing suicide and so forth. I don't know how Dante handles that. But in the way the world is set up, what you do in this life has got consequences and you're stuck with them. And it's not like being in prison. It's like just being the person you are. I mean, it's like, if you said it was like being in prison, it'd be like saying, well, if you're I don't know what, let's say, just for a change, a fraudulent person, or liar, let's say, a liar, and you always get out of difficult situations by lying. Well, in afterlife, if that was the salient feature about you, then you're just stuck with it. That's who you are. But that's important to know, too, that I never said while we were doing the Inferno. There's so many things. You get in the Inferno the kind of puzzle that different people could be guilty of various different sins. So how do you know which circle to put them in? Do you want to put Dido in the circle of women who love too much? Or, I don't know what else she would be in. What is she in? Oh, yeah, good. I knew there was another, right. Or a suicide. Well, it turns out that she's defined by her being a suicide, right? That's what she is. That means that she was a self-destructive person all along. That's Dante's judgment. The moral is that every person, I think, according to Dante's scheme, has some essential feature. They're either a liar or a suicide or what else? Whatever. There's plenty of them here, ranked in the Inferno, dozens of them, and everybody who's in the Inferno has chosen one of them or another, and then they're stuck with that for the rest of their life. They're essential. Well, we should have talked about Paolo and Francesca. Look at that. I mean, for the rest of their life, they're going to be. That's the wrong way to put it. For the rest of time, for all of eternity, they're going to be buffeted around by these winds and never have a chance to relax and rest and enjoy their lives. And that's not a sense that you can't say, and therefore they're really imprisoned. It's not. It's a different dimension. Therefore, that's the meaning of their life. That was the meaning of their life. That always will be the meaning of their life. Period. Have I any way convinced you? I hope. I mean, there's a difference between being imprisoned and having chosen a life. You're not imprisoned by your life. Okay, does that seem okay? Anything else? I like these questions. They're good and they're helpful. And if it turns out, by the way, this is a free season on questions, because I don't have this feeling that I would have had, that the conclusion is breathing down my neck, and if I don't finish this time, we'll never get to the end of the purgatory. I've got 2 sessions because of the way we move the paper. So I'm open to as many questions as possible. They're an important way of understanding. Yeah.
What's the point of having a fortress if anybody from heaven can come and open the walls?
You guys are full of interesting things. I like that. Well, I don't know, but we have to figure it out. And of course, it might be that Dante just hasn't got it figured out. But let's see. These people are there. They're keeping everybody out. God and the angel could come in. I guess you want to say something about it? Yeah.
It's nothing more than a symbol. I mean, it's okay that, as Jeremy mentioned earlier in the section, that the messenger can just waltz in, but to have that symbol there is just stating how autonomous that they think that they are. They're saying, okay, we're going to have our realm separate from the realm of God. So I would think that it's
But and I thought you were going to say it is compatible with what you said. And if some angel breaks in every once in a while, that's not going to change the fact that they don't accept God's plan, and they're going to stay rebellious. And the fortress is working all right. I mean, if God and all his angels marched in and took down the wall and sort of, I don't know what would happen then. But the point is, this is just a very rare, intermittent, peculiar thing that happens because of Dante. The ones inside are just as rebellious as ever, period. And I think that's what you're saying too. And that's what you mean by saying it's a symbol kind of thing. I mean, it shows that God could have come in and crushed them all if he wanted to, but he's letting them choose and suffer for their choices. And period. Is that? Yeah. Go ahead.
They were in stand against God. It would almost make them an alternative to God, and it's not their God. So then you have something out of polytheism, where Satan could fight the force of the good.
Yeah, that's
God.
nice. But and that's not the right picture. You're right. But that's interesting. But consider the following: you have to go back to the Satan of Paradise Lost. Whether you read Paradise Lost or not, it's the Satan you've all heard about: fiery leader, rebellious, who flies around and who tempts Adam and Eve in the guise of a serpent and all that. A busy Satan. And then it looks like, well, there are two forces in the universe: a good one and a bad one, and they're fighting each other, and you gotta do justice to both of them. I used to accidentally tune in on a radio program where the guy at the end said, and Satan travels through the world seeking the souls of men. And you get this feeling this enemy is lurking all around. And now why is that not the case? Well, the way Dante set it up, remember, Satan isn't able to run around. Because the only thing that can enable you, and it's worth repeating, it's so interesting, the only thing that can enable you to do anything is that something is attractive to you. And the more you set up what is attractive to you, it doesn't work. You can't, say, declare some food you don't like delicious, and then it's going to be all right. You can't change the attractiveness of things, and there's sort of two attractions of it. God's attraction of it, which, when you open yourself to it, leads you to do things. And the attraction of it that the people in the autonomous people do, the attractions you give things. And it turns out the attractions that you give things don't really work. Only God's attractions really motivate you to act. And that was another thing I was going to talk about that I didn't. I wish I could just open to it. Maybe somebody can. The discussion of why they can't walk around after sundown. Remember and Virgil can't understand that. And what I'm saying is, well, and the sun there is God, and here we are on 84 and 85 of my copy of the Purgatory. We're in Canto 7, and it turns out that the day is fading and they can't walk around. I don't know where it starts being a problem for them, but I'll find it in a second. So God's being the sun, God being this wonderful radiant power, in whatever degree it shines through things, is what makes them attractive. And since Satan has totally repudiated God's the attraction of things, Satan is paralyzed in the ice at the bottom. And therefore you don't get the two forces. There's the positive attraction of the things that God has created. This is, after all, remember, the creation we're talking about. And then there are the people who refuse God's world of attractive stuff. And those people, since nothing attracts them, since they are, as I said it, I think, when I said it at my best at one point, since they're not moved by anything, they just are unable to move, because being moved by something is letting God's attractiveness shine for you through it. Is that so? Now I'm answering I forget what the question is, but that I think is the answer. What I want to answer him. So it's not two forces. That's their fancy name for that is Manichaean. The Manichaeans were the people at the time, particularly of Augustine, who said there were two powerful forces: the good force and the evil force, the lights and the dark. But the way Dante has set it up, there can't be these two forces, and that's. But why did you ask that? I don't remember.
The saying was that the fortress was able to resist against God.
Okay, right. Okay, yes, the force can't really resist. The more anti-God they get, the more lethargic they get, and that's what's happening. And since God is the sun, when the day fades, then you can't ascend the mountain, and you can't do anything in the dark. And Virgil never gets that. That's got to do with the Christian God creating the attractiveness of everything. I thought there was more about it, but I don't see more about it. But anyway, you can see it there, and you can see it, or that is online in Canto 7, where Virgil asks, "You mean if one sought to climb at night?" Or line 50. Would others block his way, or would he simply find that he couldn't? And the answer from one of the souls that's talking to them, Sordello, once the sun sets, that noble soul replied, you could not cross this line, and he ran his finger across the ground. And Virgil is, in line 61, puzzled by this. I heard my Lord's voice, that's Virgil, touched with wonder, say, lead us to the place you spoke of, and so forth. He's amazed at this fact. Okay, now I saw a hand up. Was it Tyler? Did you want to say something? Really? Good. Okay. Then I'll go back to my lecture notes. But feel free, really, to interrupt. It's great to have, this is like a big discussion section. Now, I have to see what I've already covered and what I haven't now. So as I put it here, in Dante, God's creation is such. God has created the world so that things fulfill us in varying degrees. That's always these hierarchies. And we need to intensify and direct our love toward the objects that are more and more fulfilling. And finally, directing our love toward God is totally fulfilling. And that's where we are. I'm having my doubts that this is this is my lecture. How could my lecture vanish? Aha. Sorry. I could have sworn I had it, and now I have it. But it was in front of me. Oh, I see. Well, so you brought that. Oh, good. Well, anyway, here we are. And now I've got it in front of me. And so we've got the universe, and we've got two different created world, and we've got two different ways to relate to it. Or one of them is it's just the universe, sort of a matter of fact. It's been there all along. It's sort of hierarchical. It's eternally going through maybe a big bang and then a big crunch and a big bang. I mean, forever, and so forth. And so what you have to do, and you start with all sorts of extreme desires. I said that last time too, like a child. And your job is, and with the help of the church and the state, insofar as they're doing their job, is to curb your desires so as not to go after things that can't satisfy you. So on 173 in my copy, Canto 16, I put it on the new syllabus, which, by the way, will be on B-Space tomorrow. So Canto 16, we get this explanation about free will of a sort. Canto 16, line 79. The spheres start your impulses along, and so forth. It's sort of messed up here with astrology. I don't want to get into that. So if you turn away on line 81, from God's laws, the fault is in yourself to seek and find, and you should truly explicate the cause, and I shall. Now, never mind that. That's background. But this is the idea, that God creates every little soul full of desires and ability and the tendency to go after all sorts of things that are exciting and satisfying. And so now 84 of Canto 16, line 1. How many have my copy? How many are on 173 when I say this? Well, lots of you. Good. Well, I'll keep saying it then. And so the middle of 173, from the hand of God, whose love shines like a ray upon it, even before birth, comes forth a simple soul which like a child at play cries and laughs, and ignorant of every measure, but the glad impulse of its joyous maker turns eagerly to all that gives it pleasure. Here's a new puzzle. This is a kind of puzzle this is a translation question puzzle. I mean, the joyous maker. When you get to actually see God by the end of today's lecture, or if not, on next Tuesday, see if it would make sense to call God a joyous maker. That doesn't make sense. God isn't the kind of entity that can be joyous. I don't know whether it's the translator or what. Whoever marked down the last thing I wanted to mark down, can you mark that down too? If I had a pen, I could mark it down. Maybe I do. No. So anyway, so look at 89. So straight after this joyous maker, I mean, God, I'll just tell you, I mean, you have to hear it over and over, is this immensely perfect being whose perfection is so attractive that everyone who's open to it and sees it can't help but be drawn to it. And when you are drawn to it and you sort of stare into the radiance of it, that is the beatific vision. That is totally fulfilling, and that's God. That's the creator, but he's not but it's hardly a he. It's got so Aristotelianized that it's what Aristotle called the prime mover, which by its excellence and beauty and perfection makes everything move by attracting everything. That's this kind of mixture of Aristotelian prime mover with Judeo-Christian creator, and the prime mover isn't a person and doesn't experience joy. The prime mover is this amazingly satisfying light show. So we're reading about this, and I don't know what's happening here. The joyous maker turns eagerly to all that gives it pleasure. And now this is about babies. This is about, the sort of how people grow up and how they have the kind of desires they have. It tastes small pleasures first, to these it clings deceived and seeks no other unless someone curb it or guide its love to higher things. So that's right. I mean, that's the picture. Babies are like that. They just go after everything. Men, therefore, need restraint by law and need a monarch over them who sees at least the tower of the true city. Laws, indeed, there are, but who puts nations to their proof? Now, let's see if we can get more on the next page, line 104. The bad state, this is the quote I was looking for earlier, that's why I'm reading it. Remember I said, what's the job of the church and what's the job of the state? The bad state of the modern world is due, as you may see then, to bad leadership and not to nature's corruption in you. Rome used to shine with two suns, Rome being the ruling power. Two suns, and these suns are the church and the state. So when her rod made the world good and each showed her its way, one is the ordered world and one to the ordered world, that's the state, and one to God. Now one declining sun puts out the other. The sword and the crook, that is the state and the church, are one, that is the church is behaving as if it were a state, and only evil can follow from them when they're together. So what happens? Well, we don't hear much. Dante gets sort of carried away, and he doesn't go back to talking about what happens to the baby, But what happens is, obviously, it gets gradually conditioned by making mistakes, I think. Dante's not one for talking about mistakes. But it seems to me the baby learns that you can't get pleasure out of putting your hand in a fire, and you can't get pleasure out of, or not much, out of, say, torturing ants with a magnifying glass. They're the kind of things kids do, but then there's other things kids do which are really pleasurable, and they gradually get, from experience, pointed in the right direction, even if the church and the state don't do it. Now let's see if it's... Well, at the bottom of 181, the same thing again. This is still in Canto, or now in Canto 17. These are places where Dante sort of sums up what's going on, and it's important. So there's the creature and the creator. This is 91. Neither the creator nor his creatures move, as you well know, he said, but in the action of animal or mind-directed love. Natural love may never fall to error. The other may be striving to bad ends, or by too little or too much fervor. These are things, the ways of going wrong. I think kids just naturally go wrong in various ways, and Dante's that's built in. When it desires the eternal good and measures its wish for secondary goods in reason, the love cannot give rise to sinful pleasures. That's what happens when you're being brought up right by the church and the state and your parents. And when it turns to evil or shows more or less zeal than it ought for what is good, then the creature turns on its creator. I hope that's wrong. I mean, that's too much like rebellion. I guess I would have said, instead of turns on its creator, deviates from its creator, or something like that. It's going off in a kind of wrongish direction, not turning against God. This isn't about this, but it's seeking satisfaction where it isn't. But so you're not going along with God's plan. You're not rebelling. You're not informed. And I wonder whether the word creator there, since Virgil is talking, I guess, whoever's talking, it's not Dante, and it's not a Christian. Why would we say turns on its creator? You ought to say on its maker, my guess, for the Italian on line 102. Help write down the puzzle for me there. I don't know. Okay. Any more questions? If not, I'm going back to my notes. So we've got that. So I'm going to sum that up in a paragraph. So Dante thinks that with state and church guidance, you should love or be committed to whatever attracts you with total devotion. And then, if it fails to satisfy you, learn from your mistakes until you find the proper object of total devotion. He never says that, but that's how his life went. I mean, he went off track and he got devoted to some other woman, it looks like, and then that didn't work out, and he saw that Beatrice was the one that really mattered, and so forth. So you find someone or something worthy of infinite love and total devotion, total passion. The last thing you would want to do is cut down your desire and your passion. So there's no such thing as excessive or immoderate love, which is the way Chiardi thinks about it. There's only excessive love for X. That is, you can love food too much, but you can't just love too much. You've got to have as much love as possible. You've got to have a super amount of love and just direct it to what can satisfy a super amount of love. And I'm repeating myself because that's the crucial Dante picture. So now we've gotten to Beatrice appearing. Do I really want to? We did that. So the question is, do we have to do it again? I don't know. Not when I suddenly run out of notes. The mysterious notes are still eluding me. Let's go back here. So now we're going to skip to Cante 29, but we've already done that because that's Beatrice, and Beatrice comes and shines on Dante like the sun, and so Dante worships this lady because she's his lady. Remember that we've got chivalric love in here. For those who are interested in writing paper topics on love, there's so much of interest to try to figure out there's these, I just say sort of things that are on my mind that I don't have figured out. I mean, there's so many different meanings of love going around in here. There's agape love, which is this overflowing kind of love that comes from being so fulfilled that you're ready to now sort of help everybody else. There's eros, which is desire, that there's lots that you need, that you go after, and you feel happy when you get it. And then now we've had those. Eros and agape are always sort of around. They're roughly, Eros is the Greek position, and agape is what you get in the Gospel of John, mostly a Christian. But then there's another, and this is where it gets really hard and interesting. There is the chivalric love, which is the same thing as what we call romantic love, which isn't the overflowing love for helping your neighbor, which gets translated charity, sort of. And it's not desire, which is sort of at its most exciting and erotic kind of love, kind of thing that Helen was great at, being just swept up by somebody. And then there's the knights totally devoted to their ladies. I wish we had time to read something by them, but I don't know what we should read about. Probably Lancelot, because that's what Paolo and Francesca were reading when they lost control of the attraction and sinned. But what kind of love is that? Well, that's a kind of love which is total devotion or commitment to some particular, being. And that's what Beatrice stands for. But that's also, and why should Beatrice be in the cart, being pulled by the angels, the griffin, with the angels singing overhead? Well, it's because, and this is very important to see, what kind of love does Dante have for Beatrice? That's where all the complications come in. Well, it's hard to say. I mean, it looks like he has total devotion to her. And because he has total devotion, because she's his lady, then more water. Well, I thought I was past the needing water. So Dante's relation, just you could write a paper just looking at all the places where you see their relation. There he is, related to Beatrice like a knight to his lady. What does that mean? Well, I'm not very clear about that. It seems that she's unique. She's the only one for him. She's the only one who can totally satisfy and fulfill him, and he's completely devoted to her. Then you want to know about these troubadours and their knights and ladies. Is this physical love or what kind of love? I mean, it doesn't seem to be agape love. Doesn't seem to be erotic desire kind of love. But it's got components like that, and we have to look at them. Because and this is supposed to I'm not telling you what the answer is because I don't know what the answer is. To get a clear understanding of maybe there's some third or fourth other kind of thing that love is, but it looks like love is this amazing phenomenon. We're now in Canto 30, and she reveals herself to him. A lady came into view and strikes him with holy H-O-L-Y, holy awe. That doesn't seem like an erotic kind of love, and it certainly doesn't seem like an agape kind of love. It's romantic love. It's chivalric love. It's one lady in his life. It certainly looks like, and I think that is what it is. It gets sort of mixed in with desire, but because Dante, and I was talking about this last time, this amazingly weird thing. I didn't get any email from any podcast listener. I want to know why Dante feels that he can explain the holy awe that he feels in the face of Beatrice. It's really complete love and devotion at first sight. Remember when he was 13 and she was 10 or whatever it was. And we'll see in a minute why this could happen. It's because she's so beautiful and so sexy. But what happens is when you try to explain the holy law of, remember Holy, I'm trying to say that's what the translator says here. He looks at her and he feels the full mastery of ancient, here it says enduring love, 89, we're Canto 30, line 89. The instant I was smitten by the force which had already once transfixed my soul, the force is that love. Before my boyhood years had run their course, I turned left with the same assuring belief that makes a child run to its mother's arms. This is now, there's sometimes Virgil is like a father, sometimes Virgil is like a mother. He turns to Virgil and he says to Virgil, there is not within me one drop of blood unstirred. I recognize the token of the ancient flame, unquote. Now, that's peculiar because in the Aeneid, in my copy, page 82, if anybody is writing on this and wants to know where in the Aeneid, come and see me and we can compare. But the point is, it's very weird. Dante picks up and quotes from this quote. But this quote is a quote from Virgil, and it's a quote from Dido, who has certainly got the wrong kind of love. She is not a suicide, and she is a woman who loves too much, and so forth. So what happens here? Well, Dante takes over Virgil's notion that desire, and it's in Dido's case, full-bodied sexual desire is what's happening. But Dante uses that phrase, and then the strangest thing happens. And I talked about this already, but I find this so strange. So he's saying that he's taken over the kind of love that Virgil thinks Dido had for Aeneas, which was pure passion that was totally destructive because she neglected being the queen, she neglected everything because of him. And Dante takes it over and makes it a positive thing. But I haven't got the final thing yet. Okay, well, how is he supposed to relate to Dido? No, sorry, now Virgil's confusing me. How is he supposed to relate to Beatrice? Well, for one thing, she's so attractive. So let's go back to that again. What gives the total devotion? Well, you see it on 313 of mine. But that's not the place where it's most important. I see. Oh no, what I want to talk about is how I think it's the knight and lady story. It's going to be a story that she is tremendously physically attractive, but Dante's attraction to her is supposed to be pure. And that's the knights and ladies. I think that was the relation between Lancelot, or if it wasn't, maybe it should have been. I don't know enough about knights and ladies. Does anybody know about knights and ladies? If so, I will give you time to talk to give part of my lecture next time. It's something somebody should know. Wonder what happens if you look at Wikipedia for knights and ladies. I'll give it a try. Anyway, with this much we know from this book, that Beatrice is extremely beautiful. And that's what Dante fell for. We're now in Canto 31, and we see in line 20. She says to Dante, I filled as you were with the desire I taught you for that good that good beyond which nothing exists on earth, to which man may aspire. And now I wrote back, and now we have to look at the translation again. We're in line 24. I think it's supposed to say, another translation says, she fills him with a love and adoration only God can satisfy. See, keep in mind what's really going on, I don't want to lose you, is that Dante's relation to Beatrice is going to soup up so much love that Even Beatrice can't fully satisfy it. And he has to go on beyond Beatrice to God. But first he has to have this total devotion to Beatrice, and that's what we're reading about now. And she gives him a kind of love that I think Dante wants to say only God can satisfy. And what is it that does this? Well, he hardly knows her. He hasn't ever talked to her, I don't think. He's 13 and she's 10 or whatever it is. Is that right? Is that the right numbers? That always seems strange. She's 1 year younger. He's 13 and she's 12. Anybody remember? Anyway, it looks like it's really a question of how she looks. It's not her personality. It's her body that's got him so bewitched. And so I want to show you that because that's part of this weird story going on here. So there's this lady, and then comes this story about what he found attractive about her. Something that. Now, where are we? Okay, now I'm going to go to 314. There we are in the middle of now we're on line 118 of Canto 31. 1,000 burning passions, every one hotter than any flame, held my eyes to the loosened eyes she held fixed on the griffin. The griffin is this funny beast that's pulling the chariot, and the griffin is the symbol of the incarnation. And all of this is about the incarnation. I mean, keep in mind that she's Dante's savior. She's Dante's God, sort of. And it's through her that he understands the incarnation, because, I take it, she's his savior. And then it says, his soul, in wonder and delight, was savoring that food which in itself both satisfies and quickens appetite. That's line 129. And then this is where it gets to be so physical. At the line 136, grant us this favor, these dancing girls that symbolize the various virtues, or say, grant us this favor of your grace, reveal your mouth to him, and let his eyes behold the second beauty which your veil conceal. Where's the first beauty? The eyes, where are they? Yeah, back to line 114. Look deep well, however your eyes may smart. We have led you now before those emeralds from which love shot his arrows through your heart. So it was her green eyes got him first, and then the next thing is reveal your mouth to him. Now I want to know whether that's the word for lips or for mouth, because that turns out to be important when Paula and Francesca switch from the very fancy talk of lips to the very earthy talk of mouth. And I suppose, no, I don't know what I think. I mean, it's too many things are going on to have an opinion. You need to try to put it all together. Okay, and so that's the next thing. But then we have to go on. Finally, on 312, back there on 312, which we've missed one. Here we are, line 49. Nothing in art or nature could call forth such joy from you as the sight of that fair body. We want to know about the Italian. It says those fair limbs in another translation. I think it's her legs, but I'm not sure. Fair members is another translation. We wanted Kiva to tell us what. But whatever it is, I think it's supposed to be very embodied. Maybe limbs is the one that seemed to me the nearest to what I want. And now what happens? Well, he sees all that. Now I have to be careful here to cover things. Dante worships the lady, and Dante says after that she reveals her mouth to him and so forth. Now where's the ancient flames again? I just saw it. I just read it. Help me find a quote. Well, I'll go over here. So, total devotion. Maybe it's back there. Yeah, here we are on 304 on this, line 48. Now, and this is really, I said it last time, but it's so tricky and so funny and so neat. I mean, remember, he's taking a sentence from Virgil, which is Dido's description of her completely sick and fatal love of Aeneas, and putting it in the mouth of Dante, who says to Virgil this Dido-like thing. And so Dante is turning this pathological love that Dido had for Aeneas, such that when he went on to found Rome, she committed suicide. This completely sick love from Virgil's point of view. Dante's taking it over and using that very same line to describe his heavenly kind of love that's saving him. And the interesting thing is, what happens to Virgil at that point? That's what's so interesting. He does this quote, "I recognize the token of the ancient flame." Dido's remembering her love for her first husband. But he had taken his light from us. He had gone. Virgil had gone. Virgil, the gentle father, and so forth. And so, in other words, at the moment in which Dante takes over the sort of physical love and desire that Virgil is talking about and opposing, and turns it into the saving thing, however he does it, and that's what a paper has to be about. When Dante takes over this sensual, crazy devotion that Dido has, and uses it to describe his love of Beatrice, Virgil vanishes in a puff of smoke, in effect. At that moment, you see that whatever it is that Dante's trying to get at about love, it's not something that Virgil can understand. And Virgil's gone. But what does happen is not so helpful, I think, or maybe it's revealing. I think it's revealing. It's just not what I would like Dante to be saying. So stick to Canto 30. Look at line 120. Beatrice says, turning my mild and useful eyes into his very soul, she's saying to the dancing girls that are around, I let him see their shining, and I led him by the straight way, his face to the right goal. And then skipping a little, then she dies. And then, now we're in line 128. When I rose from the flesh into the spirit, to greater beauty and greater virtue, he found less pleasure in me and less merit. He turned his steps aside from the true way, pursuing the false images of the good that promise what they never wholly pay. What happened? When she died, Oh, sorry, I'm in Canto 30, line 126. So it's a story about what happens to love. What should happen to love is that what should happen to you when you've got this total commitment, like a knight to his lady, and the lady dies? I don't know what the troubadours had to say about that. But Dante says that once you're dead, you're more beautiful than when you were alive. That is, when I rose from the flesh into the spirit, Beatrice says. Then I got rid of my beautiful green eyes, and I got my beautiful mouth and my beautiful limbs and so forth. When I did that, I rose to greater virtue. Now, why is that strange? Does that strike you as consistent with what Dante says about the role of bodies when he's asked, how will Paolo and Francesca feel once they get their bodies back? Remember, he says, Aristotle says that when you get your body, you're more perfect because you feel more pleasure and more pain. And now, all of a sudden, I'm not going to give you an explanation of this. I don't like this. I don't know what's happening. But he's saying a very Platonic thing. Plato, remember, is the one who thinks bodies are a problem, and you're better off without them. And Aristotle thinks bodies are good things, and you're better off having them. So he goes into this thing about when the body's gone. He should have gone on finding her even more attractive. But he didn't. He turned aside. He followed other embodied women, or maybe men. But whatever. He didn't stick to Beatrice. Now, the way to translate this into something that you can sort of halfway understand. What's he proposing, or to be exact, what is she telling him he should have felt once he was completely devoted to her and then she died? Well, he's supposed to remember the meaning of their love. This is the romantic love story again. I bet this is what the chivalric people think. That you've had this perfect relationship, and this other person was around with a body, but that's not what's important. What's important is you had this perfect instance of love, whatever love is, which is hard to get a grip on. And that's what he should have kept to. He should have remembered how wonderful it was with Beatrice, and his memory of it would be even better than the real thing. And he didn't do that. And that was a big mistake from this point of view. Well, and then what he really should have done, and this is even more platonic and wrong, and now I don't know where it is either, but I got to find it. I mean, what could you do to go beyond devotion to the meaning of this love? Well, what you could do is discover that what's really important is just plain love. And that's, I think, you're supposed to do when you discover that you could soup up your love and direct it to something else, not Beatrice alive, and not even Beatrice's meaning, which is what she seems to be telling him. You should somehow get in direct relation to love in general. That's a very Platonic move. That seems to get you out of relating to particular people and particular things with bodies, and even without, and get you even beyond particular people and particular things. It looks like, I'm going to see if we have time, it looks like that's going to take you right out of relation to Beatrice, into relation to the big deal love that you can have for God and God can have for you. But maybe that's what's happening. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I know you're going to mention this in the next lecture, but I think Beatrice comes from beatific love.
I mean, the name Beatrice goes from Beatitudes. I never thought about that. Yeah, why not? What's that?
Like in Christian and the Catholic doctrine, even before Dante, one could have this beatific visions, and there's where the name Beatrice steps out of it. And what that means is when the soul encounters God and can see God directly, not through a medium, but directly. And so that the name Beatrice, I think it's because of that.
Well, you're on exactly the right track, but it's complicated and stranger yet, I think, than you're saying. The question is, and that's where it would have been in the next lecture, but let's just start now. Well, what's supposed to happen then after Beatrice dies? And why is she called Beatrice? Which is because beatific vision is the name of what you would have if you directly saw God. So, but he doesn't directly see, when he sees Beatrice, he doesn't directly see God. That's important. And now I want to read this, see now. So maybe I should just say it first. So what happens is, he thanks to Beatrice, she soups up his love so much that she can't fulfill it. There's only one entity in the whole creation that can fulfill it, because he's got now total love and total devotion. And the answer is only God. So it looks like we've got to figure out what happens when Dante leaves Virgil. Dante's going to have to leave Beatrice behind in order to get this full vision. That's what you were saying, or at least that's what I think. That's what Dante's saying. So let's look at that. So each person gets their personal savior on this story, and she is Dante's personal savior. But being his personal savior, you'd think ought to be that she becomes the God person in his life, and he who has seen her has seen the Father. That would be what you'd expect, at least what I'd expect, of the incarnation. And that's probably what you should have if you had the right sort of Christian, early Christian view. But there's so much Greek in it now, so much St. Thomas with his taking over Aristotle and turning it into a kind of love of the prime mover, that Beatrice drops out. And at the same time, in a way, Jesus drops out. And so it's a final kind of craziness that ensues. So now I have to convince you of that or show you that. So we're looking on page 14. She's looking 314, but I don't think that's what I want. No, that's when she's still revealing her beauty to him, her mouth and eyes and so forth. We have to go further. On page, she quotes Jesus, which is interesting. She is his God person. She is his incarnation. The only trouble is that they don't have that there's no way to articulate in the Greek and Latin world that they've got what it would be to be that his God person, his Jesus. And I'm going to try to say, and I've got just sort of 8 minutes to say it. I'll say it again next time in the review, kind of. They haven't any way to deal with what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next, only I can't find it, is that Dante has a vision of God which takes him away from not only beautiful bodies, but love in itself into this special experience of God. And then I have to find it. So God is the goal of all love. The Paradiso is going to tell you, 27. Let's look at Canto 27. In my book, I don't know where it is in my book now. I got switched to this other book. Okay. I'm surprised. I know what it is. I'm making that mistake again. Somebody should have warned me. I'm in purgatory when I want to be in paradise. So where's paradise? Buried in here. Okay, let's try again. Paradiso, Canto 27. Okay, he sees the God himself, top of 329, Canto 30, line 42. Beatrice is his guide. She's brought him to the point on line 37 that we have ascended from the greatest sphere to the heaven of light of the intellect, which is love unending, love of the true good, which is holy bliss, bliss beyond bliss, all other joys transcending. So she's brought him up to the experience of God of a sort that wipes out everything else. And she launches him onto that. She in effect says, now you're going to leave me behind and go for this final thing. So she leaves him on page 340, Canto 31. He's been with her all this time, but now she's sort of pushing him on to go directly to God. So on Canto 31, line 54, I wheeled about to question my sweet lady on certain matters and so forth. And one thing I expected, but I found instead an elder in the robes of those in glory. His eyes were so and so and so. Now he was getting all upset when Virgil left. Now he's really upset. Beatrice is left. At the bottom of 340, line 64, where is she? I cried in sudden dread. To lead you to the goal of all your wish, Beatrice called me from my place, he said. And if you raise your eyes, you'll see. And now comes this interesting final thing. Remember that there's a kind of big stadium, like a rose, where all the souls that are saved and are in paradise sit and look into this totally fulfilling divine radiance. And you have it in that chart of do you have a chart of the people sitting around the three Rose, I don't know. But we can give it to you. Let's try to remember to give it out. Beatrice is way up at the top, just one stage below the Virgin Mary, and she's shining on what? Well, the interesting thing is she's not looking at Dante. She's got her eyes on the very thing that is bliss beyond bliss. She's got her eyes on God. And so I've got to find it. But I'll just say it, and then next time when you read it, you'll keep an eye out for it. When Dante gets launched from Beatrice, he looks back at the earth and he discovers it is a little threshing room floor. That is, everything that mattered on the earth is now just straw. It doesn't matter. All his commitment to politics. And what's going to happen to Beatrice? Well, the interesting thing is, Beatrice, if God is bliss beyond bliss, then Beatrice is going to stop looking at Dante and just look at God. And that's what she does. And that's what I'm trying to find. She gives him one smile, and she turns away. Yeah, here we are, the bottom of 341, Canto 31, line 92. He thanks her. He sees that she's up in the rose contemplating God, and he says, starting with, let's say, 85, "You have led me from my bondage and set me free by all the roads and by all those loving means that lay within your power and charity. Grant me your magnificence, that my soul, which you have healed, may please you," and so forth. And what does she do? It's very interesting. And such was my prayer, bottom of 341 now, line 92. And she far up a mountain, that's this big stadium-like thing that she's in, and she, where are we? Far up a mountain, as it appeared to me, looked down and smiled. Then she turned back to the eternal fountain. She doesn't, at the end, she turns away from Dante, and it's clear she's never going to look at him again. Because why should she look at him if she can look at something beyond bliss? And it's clear that he's not going to look at her. In fact, it's clear that he's not even going to be Dante. And that's the last lines that I'm looking for. The very last of the whole poem. Here we are. And I'll go over this in more detail next time. But I wanted to find the end of Canto 33. Dante is finally blissed out. He looks into this pure radiance, and what happens is, and now we're on 365, the last lines of the whole thing, "Here my powers rest from their high fantasy, that already I could feel my being turned, instinct and intellect balanced equally, as a wheel whose motion nothing jars, by the love that moves the sun and the other stars." He's just become absorbed in the love of the perfect prime mover. He's not connected with politics in Florence anymore. He's not connected with Beatrice anymore. He's directly connected to God. That's what somebody over here said. Was it you? But unfortunately, it's from at least my point of view, he's been wiped out. He is now just pure bliss, turning along with the world in total attraction to the supreme perfect being, and period. It's a kind of strange sort of nihilism. Every distinction is level. All there is just total fulfillment. And that's how it ends. I mean, you can, write the papers or come into office hours next time and disagree with me. It shows what happens when the Greek and the Christian get together and sort of cancel each other out. Because now it looks like here it was, he had this defining commitment to Beatrice, who was his lady, who gave his life meaning, and now he doesn't look at her anymore because something that even trumps that meaning is God. She's led him up to God and launched him into the circles of the universe. And it looks like, that the Greek story, the Aristotle story, has taken over and wiped out the place. Here's the bottom line for next time. What She was the incarnation. She was his Jesus. What happened to Jesus in the Divine Comedy? Look and see. See if Jesus plays any role at all in the Divine Comedy. Because after all, Jesus' person ought to be very important. However, Jesus doesn't fit well with Plato and Aristotle and Greek thinking. So anyway, we'll start with that next time.